Welcome to my podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons, and the series of interviews, The Calling. I have the pleasure to interview today Dr. Ellen Mosti. Ellen, can you introduce yourself and what you do?
I'd be happy to. Yes, I am Dr. Ellen. I am a life coach, a speaker, and a best-selling author of a book, From Simply Surviving to Radically Thriving. So I actually am a thriver. I have survived a lot of my life, and I have found the key, I think, at least for myself, of how to thrive and how to step out of that survival mode, that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn that so many women find themselves stuck in, and also the habits of people pleasing, perfectionism, and trying to do everything for everyone else and putting yourself last on the to-do list. And so we never get around to taking care of ourselves. So I am on a mission to flip that women take care of themselves first and then give from the overflow rather than from the depleted state that they often find themselves in.
Sounds beautiful, sounds amazing. So, the calling is about those signs that we get, let's say, from life, from the divine, or a life event that might make us turn around in terms of our life purpose or health or career. So, can you describe the moment when you first felt the calling? Was it a whisper, a breakdown, a divine spark, or something else entirely?
Well, I've had a lot of years on the planet, so I've actually had them all. I've had the whisper, um, and I have actually asked the universe. In my case, I've asked not to get the 2x4. Some people call it the feather, the brick, or the truck. um, so I have had all those experiences, and I will share one. Um, when I was in my late 30s, my father passed away after being very ill with emphysema for a long time and then 4 years with cancer. And at the time, he was on 14 different medications. And he was asking me, because I was a pharmacist at the time, like, what are we doing? Do we know how these drugs are interacting? What are they doing to my body? I said, we have no idea because we test one drug and we see if they interact. And then we test another drug and see if they interact. And he was also on medications to treat side effects of other medications. So, medication has its place, and there's a lot of great things that have come from Western medicine, and there are some limitations. And what I found is most drugs are symptom control. They are doing nothing for the underlying disease state. So when he passed, I put myself into work, and then a year later broke down in grief. So the grief that I thought I was running from, I it caught up with me. And so once I started the grieving process, angels came into my life as in the form of massage therapists who pointed me in the path of spiritual and holistic healing. And so that was the first turn in my life to turn me away from a very lucrative career into a path that I've been on for a lot of years now, a couple decades of finding out how to heal ourselves from the inside out and to stop looking outside of ourselves for answers that actually reside within ourselves.
Beautiful. So, did you resist the calling at first? Obviously, you had been trained to be, studying medications, and, obviously, this was a totally different approach to going into the cause of the disease instead of just dealing with symptoms. So, did you face any resistance, or what finally helped you surrender to, embracing this spiritual side?
Um, well, my own healing journey. So, what I really realized when I started into the grief process after my father passing is, a lot of the childhood trauma that I experienced started coming up to the surface. So again, all the things that I thought I had shoved away and packed away, and like it was like the grieving of his death just opened Pandora's box, and I got to start feeling all these feelings that I had shunned for a long time. And as that bubbled up, and as I started learning how to deal with that, and looking for different healing modalities for myself, um, that's where my spiritual journey deepened, where my connection to my own intuition and to the God, the higher source, the spirit within me, and started tapping into that. And it was a process. I'd love to say that one day I woke up and I'm like, yes, I'm here and I'm aligned and I stayed there. And as life has it, that's generally not most people's path. So it was a deepening that occurred over years. I ended up going to another graduate program. I pursued a doctorate in theology and spirituality and health through Holos University in Missouri.
Mm.
That was a 12-year process, and made a lot of great connections during that, and really deepened my connection to myself and to my spirituality. And then this past year, um, I heard the whispers that my soul really felt like it was dying in the life that I was living. And so I chose to leave a 22-year marriage. I chose to move from Ohio to Florida and start a whole new life. One there where I can actually focus on my work and connecting with myself, and really tuning in and listening to my spirit, and being in my own place and having my own space is really allowing that to happen at a much deeper level.
Wow, that's very brave. So after you made this obviously very tough decision, how did you feel after being in this new place and doing the things that you really wanted to do?
Well, I feel great. And people are noticing that I'm a lot happier, that I have a lot more joy, a lot more energy, uh, that
Amazing.
I'm a lot more playful, and a lot of the fun Ellen is coming back.
Beautiful. I think that is like a great sign that when we hear that calling and we follow it, obviously we will have this improvement or immediate healing, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that there hasn't also been grief of, you know, a third of my life being with a partner and now I'm not. Um,
Yeah.
and and the freedom that comes from that, the thriving that comes from that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's very brave. So, how do you distinguish between your ego's ambition and your soul's mission? Because many people watching this could say, "Oh, maybe she just wanted to do her own thing." There's all these podcasts around being a feminist, and I'm I don't know, the girl boss. So how can you distinguish that ego from your soul's mission?
Yeah, it does take some discernment, um, because as I'm learning, I'm doing coaching training with a company called Genius Unlocked. And
Mhm.
they like to say that we have four voices inside of us. We have an inner child, an inner critic, an ego, and our intuition. And especially when you're in survival mode, the three voices, the inner child, the inner critic, and the ego, tend to be the loudest. So it really takes the be still and know that I'm God. It takes that slowing down, that pausing, that taking a breath, and really tuning in and asking for your intuition to come out, so that you know that that's the soul led inner guidance is speaking to you. And for me to know the difference, usually I actually do hear voices in my head. I do hear whispers like bring a raincoat, like a thought will just float through my brain. Um, so the guidance is always there if we tune in and listen to it. Um, and like I said, sometimes those other voices are louder. So for me, there's an inner knowing. When I make a decision that I know is aligned with me, I just feel like this sense of peace in my body. My body feels calm and it feels stable and safe and secure. And it's not to say that, you know, changing my own entire life wasn't scary. And there weren't moments that I was, feeling really doubtful or feeling a little scared about what life was going to look like, because I think that is normal. There are those parts of us that do fear change. And
Yeah.
yet, and also there's that sense of peace and sense of excitement of what is going to come now. And sometimes, containers have a certain space. And if we put a lot of stuff in them, they get overflowing and they not you can't put anything else in them. And so um the same as with our life and with our energy field. Sometimes we just have to clean out the clutter, the stuff that no longer serves us, the energy that no longer serves us. And sometimes it's the people or the situations in our lives that no longer serve us, and to follow our heart. And when we do that, the calling, as you like to say, um, just other doors open up, and that aliveness comes back within our energy field. And
Yeah.
and that's, to me, the greatest gift. And the reason that we're all here on this earth is to thrive, to shine our light as bright as we can. And sometimes it's hard decisions to get there.
Yeah. Amazing. No, I love it. I love your answer. So, if your journey had a title like a book or film, what would it be called and why?
So it would be called what my book is, From Simply Surviving to Radically Thriving: 5 Steps to Unleash Unstoppable You.
Beautiful.
So, and actually the painting that is on the front and the back cover, I actually was the first painting I did um, in my journey to my new place. So I actually did it at a hotel
That's
before I
beautiful.
actually landed where I am now.
Beautiful. And in a summary, what can people expect, from this to get some practical advice or a guide?
It is very practical advice. It is also sprinkled with a lot of my own stories, which I hope are inspirational and give people the courage to follow their own heart. So the 5 step process is really pretty easy and pretty simple, as most great advice is. The hard part is actually doing it. So the first step is to pause, to breathe, to check in with yourself, whether it's putting your hands on your heart or hand on your heart and belly, and just breathe in and just take the temperature of your body. Figure out what's happening here. I know for years I was on fast forward. It was just running from one thing to the next, not taking time to pause, not taking time to check in. The second step is, once you do check in, what does your body need? Does it need hydration? Most Americans are dehydrated. I don't know about the rest of the world. I know for a fact for decades I ran on coffee, 4 to 5 cups a day, and they're 12-ounce cups. um, I've since replaced that with water or hot tea. Uh, does it need rest? Does it need movement? Does it need nutrition? Again, when my life was on fast forward, when I was running from one thing to the other, food was whatever I could drive by and get. And the States, there's a lot of fast food out there. And sure, it will fuel your body. But I like to say, if you're a performance race car that takes high octane gas, you can put regular in it and it will run for a while. But if you keep doing it, after a while, it starts pinging and knocking and not running so well. So what are you fueling your body with? Are you fueling it with stuff that really makes you come alive, like the lemons behind you that look so bright and cheerful? Or are you fueling it with um, empty calories that kind of keep you going, but aren't keeping you at that thriving level? The third step is a self-love tune-up. And for me, it is a daily practice, and you can do it in the Zoom camera. It's I love you, I love you, I love you. So it's
Yeah.
one hand, two hands, three hands. Sometimes I repeat it 3 times. There's a power in three. The fourth step, and one that I've really enjoyed, is what brings you joy. do 5 minutes a day of something that brings you joy. I just got a paint by numbers coloring book. And so I work on that for 5 to 10 minutes a day. It just gives me time to decompress. It allows some thoughts to bubble up, some emotions and feelings to bubble up. And it just gives me such a sense of peace and joy. And then the last is gratitude. And it's
Mm.
gratitude even in the challenges. Um, I have a convertible. It was out in the rain the other day and I had it in the garage. I thought drying out and I went out today and an internal fan was running, was making a lot of noise. So it just got towed to the dealership. So I'm
Mm.
holding gratitude that it's going to get fixed. And I'm also holding that it's going to be a reasonable cost and an easy fix. So holding intention, holding that love, not only for yourself, but that love and gratitude is a much higher energy than some of the other emotions we experience. So it's nice to be able to balance. And the other thing that I've learned is all of those emotions that I ran from for decades and didn't want to feel or wanted to stay on this even keel. What I've found that the deeper you can feel the lower emotions, the sadness, the grief, the anger, the frustration, the higher you can feel the joy and the bliss and the and exuberance. So, like having a wider range versus a really narrow range, or trying to stay flatline, which for those in the medical profession, you know that flatline is dead. When your heart is not beating, you're at flatline. So, really, we are meant to experience all that life has to offer. And the more we can embrace all of it, the fuller our life is and the more that we can thrive.
Wow, what a beautiful answer. And I do believe that having the right routines, the right practices can allow us to have, uh, let's say, a steady connection with, this divinity, with this inner peace, to have that clarity to whatever we want to achieve in life. So how are people receiving your book?
It's being really well received. I'm getting some great reviews, and I also do a bi-monthly self-love tune-up call.
Mhm.
Right now it's for women only, so if you have a mixed audience
Yeah,
with men, I apologize that I don't serve half part of your audience. But it is time for women to take time for themselves to connect with each other, to connect with themselves, and to learn tips of how to raise their vibration and how they can thrive.
that's beautiful. So, I think you already mentioned these. Obviously, what practices and habits obviously is your 5 steps. Kind of to get into this resilient mindset and the spirituality. Obviously, your 5 step. I think it is totally aimed at that. So, what would you say to someone who feels a calling but fears what it might cost them? Meaning, kind of, what can they lose? What can they? I don't know.
Yeah, when I wrote the book and when I left my marriage, I did say I didn't want to create an epidemic of divorce. And yet I believe that there are a lot of women who stay in marriages, who stay in situations, stay in jobs out of fear of what life is going to be like. And I can say, at least for my own life right now, I am thriving and I feel more peace and joy and connection with the people in my life, with myself, and with God, higher spirit, source, universe, whatever word you like to use, more now than I ever have in my life. So, yes, there can be a cost. And change is always a little scary. And yet, if you really feel that calling in your heart, and it does take some discernment, it does take some quiet time to sit with what you really are feeling in your heart and in your body. And I truly believe that God, source, universe puts desires in our heart for a reason. And if they're there, then you owe it to yourself to listen and take a step in that direction. And what I find is when you take the first step, the universe just opens the path.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I can definitely relate, especially on the
I was
side
just,
of the career. Yeah, that you can just be too afraid, just keeping yourself safe. And we go back to the theme of survival you were saying at the beginning.
yeah.
So that's survival instinct might keep us in situations that are not good for us. So yeah, until
Yeah.
we
Have you made changes in your own life? How has that worked out for you?
Yes, yes. Well, I would say that life has, in some cases, has given me choices, like making outrageous decisions, like moving to another country and leaving everything behind, and not knowing why am I doing it, but trusting that it will be okay. So others, sometimes life takes us, our beloved ones. Like my husband passed away of cancer. I would have never expected that. However, I believe now that I was probably part of my life purpose was to be there for him and to support this transition instead of kind of seeing like, oh, my life has ended. And most recently, yeah, I had to leave my corporate career because, as well, life was giving me a lot of messages, like you were saying, sending me the feather, sending me the bricks. So, yeah, it might be that you don't want to make the decision. So, guess what? The life is going to push you out. So, that can be called as being made redundant. They fire you, or something to your health happens where you do not have the power of being like working like workaholic. So you don't want to get to that stage, but
You don't want to. Oh, you don't.
I've lived through some of those. So that's why I say you don't want to get to the truck.
You don't. If you can avoid it, listen early.
But
Listen often.
yeah, but if you get your truck or your feather or your brick, as you were saying, if you just surrender and accept it, I think the better your transition to your new life will be.
Yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
So how can people get in touch with you or work with you? Do you do one-to-one coaching? Obviously, you mentioned that you have a group that you run. How can people work with you?
I do have a group that I run that is the self-love tune-up. It's twice a month. It's the first Saturday and then the second or third Wednesday. Um, and there's a link, I believe, in the
Yes.
chat. My website is lightness, lightness, um, one all at .com. So lightness1all.com. Uh, and that's the best way to reach me.
Okay.
And I just really love working with women. I love sharing my journey and encouraging and supporting them on theirs.
So I'm going to share all the details in the video. So thank you so much, Dr. Ellen. It's been a pleasure, and you're very inspirational. I always find myself like when I hear someone pursuing their dreams, regardless of what life has been like, I just feel, like my heart just so full. Like, yes, we can continue living our dreams or going after them.
We can. And I encourage all of your listeners to follow their heart and follow their dreams because it will lead to a thriving life.
Yes. So thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
yeah, so bye bye. Just finish the recording.